Cool. Yeah, now we're recording, so we should just be quiet. Yeah, but I feel really great. We're talking about juice feasting, and yeah, I mean it's like I have no doubt in my mind that this is the way that we need to be. This is the way that we need to be consuming, and cooking food really just robs all the life out of it. It really just takes it away, and so I feel very lively and energized, and it's crazy the amount of weight I've lost. We're not really trying to, but I feel like I finally plateaued with that, but I've never been this, I hadn't been this thin since I was a child. Like I haven't weighed this little since I was a child, which is pretty wild. But it comes with that feeling of just like lightness in general. And yeah, I feel fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
so no downfalls of that? Sure.
I hadn't experienced any downfalls whatsoever. Yeah. It's been all good stuff.
Yeah, there's some people that have trouble sleeping because they have so much energy that they can't sleep, so they sleep like 4 or 5 hours a night.
Yeah. I mean, well, and if you look into ancient wisdom with people who truly go, because it's that's the first step, is to purify the body through what we consume, but then it transitions into the breath and kind of your state of being and your meditative state and all around. And but eventually you can get to the point where you don't even really need to sleep. You can just meditate for a little bit and you've got a full night of sleep. And that's how you really transition. I don't know how long it'll take for me to get to that point, but it's wild learning about these sort of this body that we have. It's like this ancient technology that we're trying to unlock, and we used to know how to do all these things, but we forgot. We forgot. We took on this veil and had it beaten out of us and told, you can only live for so long, and you got to live this certain way, and you got to eat this meat and all this other garbage, which is just, it makes sense why they do that. It makes sense why they keep us that way, because if we don't remember, then we make much easier slaves that way.
Oh yeah, their plan was brilliant. It worked really well.
Yeah, gotta give it to them.
Sometimes I just sit back and it's genius. Like I think that's it's one of the things that people underestimate, is that those that are working towards the power of love. I kind of look at it, the love and light side, those on the malevolent side are seeking the power of love, and those going down the malevolent side are seeking the love of power. Kind of law of one-ish, but sometimes you look at what they do and it's those on the love light path are really playing with a short deck. Most of us, because we try and do things in a way that's only going to be of service to others and not infringe or impose on themselves. But those on the other path are watching those on the love light path and going, how can I do what they're doing or pretend to, and suck them in and put on this persona. And so it's,
well, that's the kind of downfall. Yeah, that's the somewhat of the downfall or part of our maturation process of those who are more inclined to that service to others mindset is we're naive. Like we're trusting, we're very trusting, and we're very naive in a sense. And I don't think we should lose that, because it's a real thing. Like we should be trusting of each other. I want to get to the point where we live in a world where I can trust a complete stranger with my life. But we do have to kind of like confront our shadow self and recognize that we have to be empowered within that. We can't really just turn a blind eye to everything and allow it to be, and we can't allow the sickness to spread to the extent that it has. And so we have to come back to realizing that, the only way that we can go back to that state is really taking a very empowered and very direct and very forceful stance and say, no more, I'm not playing this game anymore. Like I see all you guys, I see you shadow self, and I'm not going to stand for it. Not going to happen.
Yeah, that and the victim consciousness. It's I've never heard anyone say it as much as you. I've thought about victim consciousness quite a bit and read a lot, in particular this book. And quite law of one-ish, but not with the terminology as much. But the key thing in those books is how we are stuck in this victim consciousness role, which is usually induced by fear. And we don't know it. And then what we're doing is, well, not consciously. And next thing we know, we're locked in this victim mentality, which we're waiting for that savior. And we're just locked in that cycle. Slaves. And
Yeah.
I think it's tough because a lot of people hear that term victim consciousness, and it sounds like a slap in the face to some people. But we all have it. And I just wish people could really look in the mirror a bit more and try and see where their victim consciousness is.
Yeah.
And how they can work.
Yeah, I mean, victimhood in general is a myth that's pushed. There's no such thing as victims in this reality. It's not true. You can't be a victim. There are, I mean, it's hard to see sometimes within our perspective, but even those who incarnate into very difficult situations, it's all divinely oriented. It's all for a specific reason, whether it's paying off karmic debt, or whether it's sacrificing for some greater aim, or whatever else, or even just acknowledging and wanting to incarnate with a higher set of challenges so that those can be broken and overcome. But that's the sort of pitfall, that's we can ask for those challenges and incarnate in, and still still get lost in the game and lose ourselves in it, and dip into that victim consciousness, and that's kind of like the goal to avoid. But it's like the higher the challenge, the greater the reward, kind of thing. So we ask for that sometimes.
It's a really radical notion. If you said that to a great majority of the people, there
Mhm.
are no victims. Whew, is that a big trigger?
Right.
Yeah,
That brings
it can
up
be.
all the stuff, especially in where, a person has come for challenges like that, because it's part of justice, right? Of what's fair, what's not.
Right.
I was just talking about fairness tonight, actually, because I think that it's a certain frequency of shadow in and of itself, of like what is fair and what is not. Because everything is energetic. So it's like, what is fairness really? Like what would a person be looking for fairness? Because it's like, it needs to be even, we need to be equal. Because if not, then what? One is better and one is not. Well, that's perception. But it's like there's all these notions that keep us, like you said, Kyle, stuck in victim consciousness, where like even myself in my own journey, like thrashing against myself. Well, no one is coming to save you. No one. It's you. And so you'll just stand there or like thrash against yourself until you decide you're sick of your own bullshit, because that's usually what it comes down to. And that you have to make a different decision and own it all.
Right.
I chose this. Damn.
Yeah.
Sometimes I sit back and I just think about how thick the veil is, especially if you look at it from a wanderer's standpoint. It's highly plausible all three of us are wanderers. Otherwise, we wouldn't have some of these conversations. And I don't say it with any sense of hierarchy or anything. If anything, it's like a sense of duty and responsibility, if that is the case. But I remember Ra talking about in the Law of One about how many wanderers, I'm paraphrasing, but bite off more than they can chew. They pick a really difficult incarnation and all these different things they want to accomplish. And I find it just amazing that there's that many people here that want to be here during the shift, because we would have all known before we incarnated that we were coming here during this time. And that many are still, they haven't hit the snooze alarm. It sometimes it just shocks me how many people are so conditioned and how strong the subconscious programming is from a young age that so many don't wake up. I was a late bloomer waking up, and I still have a lot to wake up to as well. But I just find it amazing sometimes of how strong the illusion is here and how many people get lost in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's powerful dark spells that are just being woven, and they have been woven for generations, and it's been the long con. And because that's the only way that they're able to actually do it, is they have to be meticulous. They have to be just extremely thorough with how they go about it, because as soon as it starts to spring forth, like the reality of what we're supposed to do here, the ascension, it can't be stopped. Like and that's why they're constantly beating down anyone like the Buddhas and the Krishnas and the Jesus Christ. Anytime they start to rise up, they have to wipe them out. And even to the lesser extents, like the Gandhis and the Martin Luther Kings and any of those kind of people, like they can't allow that kind of idea to flourish, because it's so infectious. And then once it takes hold, it destroys everything. And because all they've got is a house of cards, it's just this flimsy, it's very well constructed. It took a long time to get there, but it falls apart very, very quickly, which means they have to work overtime to just obfuscate literally everything. Like every bit of what organized society portrays to us is an obfuscation away from the truth, in order to keep us in this idea that we have to receive information from external sources. We can't go within. We can't rely on ourselves or our discernment or our connection with God. It has to be gotten from some talking head, some source, otherwise some expert. And most of us are still stuck in that. And sadly, I don't know what it's going to take. I mean, I imagine I'm fairly certain some big things are about to happen that are going to rock the boat quite a bit. But it'll be interesting to see how people react to it, because that spell is so deep. It's so deeply woven, and it has been for so long.
What are you foreseeing some of the big things coming down the pipe? What are you hearing?
Well, we've got the true new year on March 21st, 22nd, and from what Q has said, this is a biblical time. Like, it's biblical. That's been referenced over and over again from what Q has dropped. And this is the time this is the time in Lent where Jesus was wandering through the desert. So we're wandering in the desert right now. We're going through this tumultuous, the darkest moments, the precipice right before the darkest moment right before dawn. So it would make sense to me, and I have no idea if this will actually come to fruition, but I would think that we're going to see some pretty big things this month, with that, because those who are orchestrating from behind the scenes for the positive, for the benefit, recognize that they need to do it astrologically. They need to align things up in a way. And so with March 21st, 22nd, that's technically Passover. It should be during that time, because that's that time when death passes us over. That's the time when winter, the fall of man, springs into new life, and we enter into the new year. So that should be the regeneration of man, and this would be a very fitting time for there to be something for us to kind of like click and step forth and have that some sort of catalyst, some sort of big pop to jump us off and get us into that momentum. And there have been people, I don't know if you'll follow 107, but he's been kind of big on the truth community kind of world, and he's alluded to he hasn't gotten any dates wrong yet, and he was one of the only ones who said that Biden was going to be inaugurated. It was going to be a fake inauguration, and he said that by April, and he said anyone making bets, say that don't bet on inauguration day. Say that by April 1st, all those who voted for Biden will realize how foolish they were on April Fool's Day. So that's a big day to watch. I mean, maybe not necessarily that day, but alluding to this month. Q's reference March Madness over and over again. President Trump last year, when COVID first started, said that by Easter, COVID will be gone, and he didn't specify which year. So they thought, there's no way it was going to be gone by Easter last year, but it could have been talking about this year. So lots of big things, lots of big potentials. Something has to happen, because we're at the point now where so many people who did vote for Trump, who do recognize that there was insane amount of voter fraud. I mean, they're not going to put up with this for much longer. So it's kind of like a balancing point, because it's all a movie being orchestrated for the benefit of waking people up. That's how I see it, and there's a lot of evidence pointing to that. So they're kind of like on a tightrope, because they want to prolong the movie to piss off as many people as possible, to piss off as many of the Biden supporters who voted for Biden, to make them realize what their plan actually was. And so he's actually walking it out and doing what they were planning on doing. He's doing it on purpose to like antagonize and piss them off, and show that, like, we don't really care about you or what you wanted to do. We're going to do what the CCP was telling me to do, and we're going to roll it out. But he's just a figurehead. He's not even, I mean, I saw the other day where he was like, he heard on his headset, like he was walking in, and he was walking past some Marines, and he said out loud, "Salute the Marines," as if someone was telling him in his eye. So but he's an
Oh,
actor.
wait, that was for me.
Yeah, he's an actor, so he's playing dumb, and that's not even really Biden. Like, that's a dude. It's a dude with a mask. So that's going to be a weird unveiling to have that happen, but it's all going to play out at some way or another to where that truth will come out. And yeah, so it's got to be something within the next couple of months. Like, it really has to be, because otherwise, if they don't do anything, like I said, there's going to be too many people who are not quite as privy to the plan and what's happening behind the scenes, who did vote for Trump and are pissed off, and we don't want them to actually go to do anything, because it wouldn't be like these little protests and riots that we saw last year. It would be a serious issue.
Mhm.
So it's the boiling point. Like, we're there. Something's got to happen.
And then there's us Canadians.
Yeah.
We'll do what we're told. We'll
Yeah.
do what we're told. We'll judge each other. Like, I don't know what it's like where you are right now, but here the majority of people are walking around the streets with masks now,
Mm-hmm.
which it just blows my mind that people think wearing a mask outside. I could see how people would be scared enough to think this is real and wear it inside. I could empathize with that. But to wear it outside, that's just really, really strange.
And we're not even in a province like Quebec where it's like severe.
Yeah. Well, case counts are
Well, I mean, like, protocol wise, or
yeah.
like orders and everything.
Yeah, it's really strange.
It's almost like voluntary. I mean, it's not voluntary. They've made it mandated, but it's like, I don't know. It is really surprising.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to keep seeing that bifurcation, depending on regions and who's in charge of those regions. And unfortunately, for people living in regions that are run by corrupt people that are still going along with this corrupt plan, they're going to have to experience some level of pain to say, hey, your leaders are ridiculous, and they're going to keep pushing this, and you're going to have to do something. You're going to have to stand up to it, and either vote them out or fire them. We have the ability to get rid of all these people anytime we want to, and it doesn't have to be violent whatsoever. It just has to be like, no, we're not playing this game, and you're done. Like, power to the people kind of thing. But on the other hand, you see states like Texas and Mississippi and other places where they're getting rid of the mask mandates, and they're opening up, and they're saying, fuck you, Biden, we're not going to do this shit anymore. And so we're really going to see this split pretty clearly, and people are either going to stand up or just move away from all of these places that are getting stricter for the time being. I don't think it will ever get to the point where it's like bad for, like, I can't imagine it would get to the point where there would be mandatory vaccines anywhere. Like, that just seems a little bit too far. But unfortunately, it does have to play out in a way that is somewhat painful to everyone, because we've just abdicated our freedom. We've abdicated our sense of self so much that we've incurred this sort of karmic rebalancing. We have to go through this, and to some degree or another. And yeah, it sucks for people who do realize it, who are kind of in those areas. But we're all in the areas that we need to be for the reasons that we should, whether that's to realize it and pick up and go, or to help spur on some sort of catalyst to drive home and make a change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see like the wide array of people's reactions when all this is exposed, because oh my God, like there's so many people who bought into so deeply and have sacrificed so much because of their belief in it. So it will be quite the jolt. And I think that that's kind of where the people who can see will come in great service to be able to support that, because I don't know. I'm so grateful that even though it was, the journey to get here, I think for many who are awake, has been grueling, has felt isolated, and has felt lonely. but is all part of like the actual experience of shaping us so that we could be prepared for a time such as this. And it's a large number of people who are still really bought in. And so it's like, people missing births and funerals and weddings and people passing and not being able to see them. And that's like what they've given their permission to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's all just, for the reason of a farce. Like that's going to be quite an awakening for some.
Very much so. Yeah.
So even like with the vaccination thing, I don't see that it will be mandatory either. It will become incredibly violent before that happened. Like if that's what was launched, the violence would break out.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think right now more people than ever are questioning it. So
well, and it's refreshing to see so many people on the inside, infiltrators, physicians and specialists and like biologists and stuff like that on the inside saying, no, like we are against this. This is not okay. So it's refreshing to see how many people on the inside are coming out and saying, like speaking truth about that.
Yeah.
It's such a litmus test, like all of it. And I think that's why this plan is so brilliant, especially what Trump is doing, because he's just having people expose themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
really
just letting them come out, and it's a trap for more of these sort of, to really see where people's allegiances are. Like, are you with this new world order kind of plan? Were you aligned with it, or are you not? Do you still have some humanity at heart? Do you still have, like, are you just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but you're willing to flip and work for the good of humanity? Yeah, it's brilliant in that sort of way. And I do think all the key players have already been rounded up, and we'll see the aftermath of their tribunals and arrests and executions and things like that. But there's still a lot of ground floor minions and people who are still, trying their best, and it's chaotic because they don't know where their orders are coming from or why they're coming from in this way. But they're having to be a lot more obvious about it too. They're not able to hide anything. Like the White House the other day, they had a pirate flag flying over the White House. Seriously, like a skull and bones pirate flag
really?
over the White House for at least one night, and they caught pictures of it, and it's just so ridiculous. I mean, the White Hats are they're basically just being trolls right now. Finding little ways to drop clues to say, hey, yeah, this is a movie. We've got to keep doing this because this is not for you. This is not for us this is not for our benefit. It's to get as many people warmed up to the idea that this is horrible and we need something done about it, so that when the military does come out and say, yeah, by the way, we were under attack and our whole system was rigged, and it has been that way for a long time. It's not this chaos. I mean, there will probably be pockets of that in certain areas, but it won't get that bad. So everything is just like trying to quell that as much as possible, which is, it's absolutely brilliant, and it makes so much sense. I was disappointed a little bit when Biden got elected, but I kind of had a feeling that it was going to happen a few days before. Like I got some kind of download to point to that, and I started warning people just like, hey, don't set your expectations too high that this arrest is going to happen on this day. Like I think they might let this play out. And just after the fact, like it makes so much sense why they would, because now Trump's out of the picture. They have no one to blame. I mean, they're still trying to blame Trump for things, which is hilarious. But those who think that this movie is real and that Biden is the president have no one to blame but Biden for all the shit that's happening. So he's going to take the fall for all of it, and then when it does finally become unveiled, like it's just going to be more of a relief. I still think it'll be hard for many people to swallow. Like you said, it'll be interesting to see how people react to realize they had an entire year stolen from their lives, and much more. Like, yeah, lives lost, and especially like the nursing home things, like people's grandparents and parents killed in nursing homes just for this kind of stuff. But we've got to, this is so much bigger than just a quick fix. This is so much bigger than just a one-time arrest. This is about the dawn of the new age. This is about leading into this mentality that we have to be so firm on our mindset that we can never, ever, ever allow this to happen again, to where we're teaching our children's and our children's children what this looks like and how evil this can get, and what happens when you start letting literal vampires, like these people that harvest children for their blood,
Mhm.
like that's what they do. That's the sick
Mhm.
reality of it. They have chosen so far this left-hand path that they there is the ascension path, and then there's the descent path, and the descent path is all about AI, and then just twisting, finding loopholes to longevity, and one of those loopholes is all about harvesting youth. And it's so crazy that's a reality. Like you can't make this shit up. You can't. But that's what we have to learn about. We have to learn about the vampires, like literal vampires.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like even some of the parents or the guardians who are like have, I mean, again, there's no victim, so the children have signed up for this too. Like all the children who are experiencing even just like schools and all of these mandates, and like, you know, their hands being infected because they're so full of like, or they've been sanitized so much. But I don't know if you heard this part, but in Peel region in Ontario, there were parents who were following an order that was recently canceled, but they initiated it to say that any child that was exposed to anyone who is tested positive for COVID had to isolate them, the child, for 14 days in their house. So that means no eating with family members, not sharing a bathroom. And so parents were literally locking their kids in these rooms, and then kids were screaming and crying, and the parents were upset because they're like, well, they're just screaming and crying in there, and I'm trying to honor this order. And it's like, you can see how far gone we are when we obey something like that and
Yeah.
literally abuse our children. Like that's just how far
Yeah.
we are from that. And so when this whole thing is revealed that was all for nothing,
Yeah.
holy shit, like that is going to create quite a stir within a parent, because you think you're doing the best that you can, because they are where they're at, but then it was all just a hoax.
Yeah, and it should, because honestly, the cabal, like they they don't think they've lost this. They think that they just lost the battle. They know they've lost this battle. They know that this disclosure is going to happen. They know that, most of their high level people have been arrested and taken care of. They know that they've lost from that perspective. But they still think that the programming is so deep within us that 5, 10, 20 years down the road, they can just find a way to trickle back in just the same way and it'll just be a setback. They're just
Yeah.
viewing this as a setback to where they can come back in. So that's why everything has to be so painful for us to actually see the full fruition of their plans and experience it to a degree that we do get pissed off. We do get so angry that we really take that in. And yeah, I mean, it's wild, but
Yeah. Well, and there's that primary aspect too of free choice, free will. I mean, that is, these arguments have been around forever. If we really have free choice and free will, and of course we do. It might be within certain containers, but of course we do. And I think this is something that's underestimated too, is that this illusion reality school that we're in, one of the primary aspects of it is free choice, free will. And so until we give our choice to wake up and question things and stand up, and until we use our own free will to say, no, I need to question these things, I need to look into these things, no, I'm not going to lock up my child in the house, until someone actually stands up into that light, more of this needs to continue, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
the show is just going to continue until people finally get some sort of red pill that wakes them up. And it's so clever that it's not an all-out war.
Mm-hmm.
If it was an all-out war like it was historically, people are forced to wake up because there's a different level of fear programming that comes forward. It's self-survival. And so you hunker down with those that you think you can survive with. Right now, it's psychological warfare. And so people don't see, it's not overt what's going on. And so some people are just slipping deeper and deeper into that programming. But at some point, I think at some point, a lot of people will just be quickly activated. It could just be one thing that really quickly activates them to wake up and start to question things. And I can see it in my counseling practice. I can see some people that are just, they're on the cusp, or I see some people that, like, for example, one, not disclosing anything, but one person in particular was very much asleep that I've worked with, spiritually minded, but very much asleep to what's going on in the bigger picture, because they're just so focused on the programming from CNN. But then the vaccine came out and they learned that it was an mRNA vaccine and that it actually plays with our DNA. And that for them was, now they're questioning that so heavy, but they're not questioning the rest. And I'm just waiting for these two to link together and it's all going to open up, right? So they're kind of fighting with this right now. But I think a lot of people are going to have that happen where just one thing comes forward and they're kind of not really looking at it too much or not thinking it's tied to the bigger picture. And then all of a sudden they're going to see how this is one big game, one big puzzle.
Yeah, my best guess and what's going to hit everyone and what would be the most like tactically effective way to do it would be an orchestrated financial collapse, in a sense where we're going to have like a day or two or maybe a week where no one can get anything out of their bank accounts, where all the bank accounts appear like they're lost. Like I don't think it's ever going to be devastating enough to where that becomes a reality. Like I think normal, good, everyday people are going to be fine. But I think that would be a very nonviolent way to get people to be like, hey, wake up, like pay attention, something's going on, this is not right. And that's my best guess, just based on the way that the financial markets are moving right now. I think we're being primed for that, and I could see that would be a good way to do it. Just to you go to the ATM, it doesn't work. Like holy shit, like something's happening, and it's all around, and you're asking people like what's going on, and you start to ask questions. You start to find out that like, oh yeah, the financial system's all tied to this crooked system, and it's all part of the same. I don't know. That's just my thought. I think that might be something that could happen.
Yeah.
Did you catch Trump's speech from the CPAC?
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
It was like a repeat of his rallies. It wasn't really for us who have been paying attention to him. It was for anyone who hated him in the election cycle, but are now curious what he's got to say, since it's been like a while since he's spoken, 6 weeks or so. So it was for all the liberals and people who voted for Biden to hear everything that he said. And, Q's always said that Trump's not going to be one to come out publicly and disclose anything like that. Not yet, at least. It's not part of the plan for him to do that, just for optics reasons. So I didn't really expect anything major to happen from him. I know a lot of people had issues with the vaccine thing that he brought up too, and it's hard to like see it from why that would be a good reason, or why he would need to do it, why he would need to even talk about him or push him. But people are so brainwashed into thinking that they need a vaccine to get over this fear, that I think he's got to play that narrative, unfortunately. But that's all part of the kind of like, we shouldn't be relying on any and we shouldn't be relying on any external source to tell us what to do, and he's never advocated for mandating them. But it's also kind of like a reverse psychology, in the sense that because that speech was catered to people who voted for Biden and him advocating for vaccines, and they hate Trump, they're gonna be like, oh wait, he's advocating for vaccines again. I'm gonna do some more research into this, and maybe
It could be
that sort of way to turn them away from it, because some people are still just so, we call it like Trump derangement syndrome, just hate him so much. Which is funny. It's funny that people get so stuck in that, but it just goes to show how effective the spells have been woven. The mainstream media really does a good job.
I thought it was really good for any person who, was like on the fence of like believing that there was something that, Trump was coming to save the day, even though there's like a bigger plan. Because he still dropped his symbolic nuggets in there.
Oh,
so
he definitely dropped a lot.
I was like, that was great. It was very repetitive. He was talking about how great they did and unprecedented this and all that, but he still had his coding in there, which I always really enjoy because it's so subtle. Especially when he's talking about Biden getting the shot.
Like, yeah, Biden shot.
I've only seen a portion of it. I haven't seen the whole thing.
Oh, he got the shot.
Yeah, he got the shot. And he said that in his rallies over and over again too. Biden shot, and because Biden was executed a while ago. But yeah, no, that's a good point too. Like he did drop a whole lot of really good clues if you're paying attention. It's just like confirming, like, I mean, he referred to himself as President Trump. He said, he said so many different things. Santa Surfing did a pretty good breakdown in her video on it, just highlighting the sort of key comments where he went into that. But yeah, so it was a good confirmation just for anyone who's paying attention.
Yeah, it was good to see him in the media again.
Yeah.
It felt like it's been a while.
Yeah, I
Just
miss him.
misses humor.
Yeah, I
Really.
missed him. I was like, I love that guy. I love him. I love him so much. I just want to hug him. He's just such a because I appreciate it. I appreciate him for what he's doing. Like, and to have the patience that he's had, because it, really the people who have fully known about this plan is so few and far between, and it's been going on for like 70 years. Since JFK was killed. And to have that, not saying that necessarily Donald Trump has known about it for that long, but even to have known about it for 10, 20, however many years he has known about it, anyone who's known about it for any length of time, like the amount of patience and just service. It's just so service oriented to be so invested into this huge plan that has to be pulled off in the exact perfect way in order to avoid just the societal collapse and calamity that would happen otherwise. Because Q talked about that if Hillary had been elected, the military was fully ready to go the full on frontal route. Just because it would not, like, we could not have allowed that to happen. It would have just been a slippery slope into dystopia. But that would have been really bloody. That would have been really
That's like a
devastating.
whole other timeline.
Yeah.
That would have been just radically different.
It would have been wild. It would have been crazy.
I'm glad we picked this one because it's so intricate and it's so nuanced and so layered, and I just love seeing all the systems, and there's so many moving parts that have to be timed precisely, and it's just brilliant to watch it and to be able to see. It's really fun.
Yeah.
It is messy, absolutely, but that's like, again, like the growth that any person who's awake would have to go through. You get a certain appreciation for messiness because it's going to be gnarly. Your expansion and your discomfort is going to be sometimes excruciating, but on the other side of that is really where the goal is. And so then you get this sort of thick skin where you have an appreciation for the messiness, where you're like, yeah, this is going to get really good.
Yeah.
And finding balance, finding that
Mhm.
inner balance, right? I know that's been tough for me over the past years. You go through periods where you want to red pill people and wake them up. You go through periods where you're digging into the research and seeing things and wanting to talk about it, and there's just it's such a balancing act to be able in our own experience of what's going on, being able to balance that and have patience and do that inner work and face our own shadows. And yeah, it's
yeah.
Sorry, I'm just thinking. I'm kind of wondering if you guys want to switch gears a little bit, because I know you guys have so much experience in detox and some of those areas, and I'd love to hear what you guys, because I'm still learning a lot about that area.
Well, I mean, a good segue into that is just that, all of this is micro to macro. We're going through dark to light, from the internal to the external, and we have to be getting rid of our own cabal, our ego, and the parasites that rule us and keep us from achieving what we want to achieve. And so I think that's a great topic to jump into, because it's really important. We can't be relying on, again, this external savior to do everything for us. There is a lot of work being done behind the scenes to give us an opportunity to step into. But if we're not fully invested into doing the work internally, then it's just going to falter. And that's what the cabal is expecting. That's what they're counting on, is for us to just take this one time quick fix, and then they'll be able to come back in and pick up the pieces afterwards. So truly getting serious about things like detox, which is so vital, because we have been so toxified like our whole lives from birth. It's vital. It is so vital that it gives anyone just looking at heavy metals, like, it gives anyone the ability to weaponize frequencies and steer us into whatever directions, or cause whatever viruses to emerge, which viruses are just the exosomal response. And when we know that it's not an actual like thing that's coming out to get us, it's our body saving us. But it does allow us to be controlled in that sort of way. So yeah, I think that's a great topic to jump into.
Well, and even going on the balance part, I have enough education in the health sciences field and whatnot, but I didn't learn about detox. I didn't learn about heavy metals, and so when I look at the three systems, mind, body, and spiritual systems, a lot of people are working on the mind system to some degree, consciously what we're looking at, trying to engage in more meditation practice and whatnot. But I think the body is really underestimated as this temple, this channel of energy. And sometimes it's so much more than just looking at it through the Western lens of, oh, what's the flow chart we're supposed to use for our eating? And what are we told are our food guidelines? Like, oh my God, people, I can't believe people are still referencing some of that and trying these fad diets and these different, it's amazing. But still, I'm learning a lot from you guys about how clean eating can be in different ways. And so I'm really curious to hear you guys talk a bit about some essentials that people could be doing for just starting to work on that body complex and starting to clean it out and detox a bit. Some people, they're not willing to do these big fasts. Fasting in North America culture, it sounds weird to most people. Why would you fast? Why wouldn't you eat? So I'm kind of curious what you guys think around some of the key things that people could do to just start working on that body complex, that body system, kind of clear out that temple a bit.
Well, the approach that, or the more of like the perspective that I follow there that really resonates with me is clearing obstruction. Like, it's not about adding things, it's about taking things away, which, I mean, to the ego and also for like, parasites and cravings and all this, it sounds terrifying. But we're so obstructed, and this goes on all of the levels. We're energetically obstructed, we're physically obstructed, mentally, it's obstruction. So this system overlaps over everything of just clearing the obstruction. And I think I used this example or this analogy with you before of, it's very much like a drain that gets clogged, and we can't even receive our guidance if we're all completely obstructed. And that can be, again, starting with the physical level, we're all just shut down. And so for me, like, it really isn't just solely just the body. It's, doing an inventory of everything of us as a consumer of all things that are anything that's energetic as well, of like what is in my vicinity, what's in my experience that I need to actually purge or to release, because it's all having an impact on how clear I am as a channel.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to the body aspect, it was, we did, I played around with like transition diet. We were eating like basically as clean as you could get, but we were still having dairy and meat. So it was like grass-fed, organic, blah, blah, blah. And then I came across, I'm not sure who you follow or like if you have any content that resonates with you. I got into lean and mucus free
with Dr.
eating.
Morse.
Dr. Morse, yeah, Dr. Morse and Sebi and Erit. And it was just about getting rid of, the top three were meat, dairy, and coffee. And coffee was like my vice. It was like the worst. And actually I noticed coffee is like one of the most brilliant controlling tools there is. It is insane because it's everywhere. Everyone, when you go out, take note, everyone, like a great 80% of people that you see walking around has something in their hand. And it's usually some kind of stimulant. If it's not coffee, it's something. And it's just like this, it's so socially acceptable. It's so conditioned. And because coffee is so available, it's such a depletion on the endocrine system, the adrenals. It is like fries our nervous system, and then it causes us to crave horrible things like salt and like fatty things. And so it's like this perpetual cycle. And then we're depleted, and then we're like, oh, we need this boost. Meanwhile, it's like frying our system, so our channel is still not clear. It's crazy. And so those are the top three. And then doing cycles of fasting, like you said, fasting was really eye-opening to me. It really created so much awareness as to how much conditioning we have for food, whether it's because I'm eating because it's noon not because I'm hungry. We're just so shut down to the messaging that our body is trying to tell us all the time because we're conditioned. We're paying attention to the condition. Oh, I got to eat because it's noon, or finish what's on your plate because you don't want to be wasteful, or even just something as simple as like following all these fad diets. Like, it's just never ending. And having kids is a really great opportunity to really reflect on what your relationship is to food, because you have to offer it to them. They have their own preferences, but you're trying to teach them autonomy and sovereignty and listening in, and you don't want to override that, but you know what I mean? Like it's then you start asking yourself, well, they ask you, well, why? And then you have to ask yourself why. And then it's like, well, because this is how I was raised, or because it's good for you. You know, like it's crazy.
So when you say fasting, because I can tell you from counseling people that most people don't have a clue what fasting is. Like they'll know fasting is not eating, or but like some people will wonder, well, when you're saying fasting, are you talking about, you know, one meal? Are you talking about one day? Are you talking about multiple days? Are you talking about not eating anything? Are you talking about having fluids?
Fasting,
how would you clarify?
Well, it doesn't necessarily, because that would be dry fasting would be not eating at all. Then you could say liquid fasting, where you're only having liquids, which is still, you're giving your guts a break, but you're still taking in nutrients, unless you're doing a water fast, which I don't recommend unless you've been detoxing for some time, because it's really taxing on your kidneys to flood them when most people's kidneys are completely obstructed. They're not even filtering.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could fast in many different ways. For me, how I started was I started with like a window and dry fasted overnight, and then just kept expanding it from the day in the morning, like from the morning and then the evening, and just got as wide as I could get of a window. Whereas it was down to just 4 hours of eating, and in that 4 hours, it was still very intentional as far as, you know, having some citrus juice or some juice, and then maybe a large salad. And that wasn't even like the deep detox. That was just, you know, just doing cycles. And I think that's another thing to talk about too, is that these are meant to be cycles, and there's so much in the psyche that's got to be like this all or nothing. That's like, oh, if you go and have, you know, a piece of toast or something, oh, F it, I'm just gonna eat whatever and fall off the wagon. And it's like, we have to, there's such a correlation between our emotional state and our energetic state, and then physically, and what comes up. Because of what I've noticed too, and I don't know if you've experienced this too, Justin, is that you can't separate them. So when you start doing fasting or detoxing, every single emotion that we decided not to feel and suppressed is stored in the body. So when we detox, it's pulled up. And so it makes it even more uncomfortable, because you're physiologically experiencing some detox effects, but you're also emotionally experiencing this. And so people crash really hard, and they're like, I can't do this. This is too hard, or it's making me sick. Yeah, and so they shut down and they avoid it. And yes, fasting, like detox in general, can be incredibly uncomfortable, not just because of physically, but because of what comes up. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see how often you reach for food, or you reach for something because you're uncomfortable. And this starts early. This starts so early with programming with kids. It's like you see a kid, and so the kid has like falls down and hurts itself, or the kid's upset. Oh, do you want a snack? I was doing it, and I was like, holy shit, this is how subtle it is. We're like, here, soothe yourself. Not because it was like malintended, but it was just like, holy shit, it's subtle, it's in everything. So when you start fasting, you really start seeing your own personal relationship with food. And then you start doing this on a regular basis with these cycles, and you can catch patterns of like, oh, I'm feeling stressed, so I'm reaching for X, Y, or Z, or I'm feeling like uncomfortable or anxious, or, you know, lonely, like whatever the thing is. And you could start seeing the patterns. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, well, because historically, a lot of fasting has been talked about philosophically, or even within religions, as someone fasts to get clarity within the mind. Because as you're fasting, you're suffering a bit, and you start looking at what you're suffering, and you start to get clarity within your mind, and you start letting go of some of the things that aren't high on the suffering list, and you start focusing on, oh, my body is telling me this, and oh, I'm hungry, and my stomach is. So you actually start listening a lot more. You start opening up to listening what's actually going on.
Yeah. I mean, well said, Avalin. That was a lot of good stuff. So I would say that I really like getting really simple and looking at things really simply. And so who are we and why are we here? We are like infinite fragments of the one infinite consciousness here to know thyself and to ascend or descend. It's our choice. We get to go up or down. But the ascension path is about connecting with the Mother Earth, the physical Earth that we chose to be a part of, and then rising up to meet the Father, to meet God. And that's kind of the journey in a nutshell. Organized society is orchestrated by those who are on this descent path that want to keep us down as much as possible. That want to make sure we never ever do that. They want to make sure we're as far away from that fundamental truth as we possibly can get. That we never know ourselves. That we never connect with the Mother Earth, and that we never ascend. So to combat that, we just get really simple and say, okay, what is the Mother Earth providing? What does she provide? And how can I get all of these? Because everything I consume, everything that I'm putting in my body is a piece of information. And the more complicated those pieces of information get, the further away I get from the mother, because there's been more hands to manipulate it and create different designs on it and steer it away from the natural source as possible. So the best sources of food are the ones that grow straight out of the ground, and fruits, from what I've learned, are the highest form of that food, because they have everything that our body needs, which our body really only needs fuel to provide. And like the whole like what is it called, the like vitamins and minerals and the supplement industry is largely a farce. Like the fact that we need all of these things, you can use them medicinally to remedy some symptoms, but the root cause really can be addressed just by getting back to the basics of we need glucose, and we need glucose from food in order to fuel our body, and then it will do everything else. If we just get out of its way, it will do everything else. So that's to me what detoxing is just getting as simple with the sources, the pieces of information that I consume, the pieces of information that I put in my body, so that my body can be this magical thing that it truly is, so that my body can take care of everything that it needs to, and I'm not relying on doctors and experts and all these people to try and tell me and steer me and push pills or whatever else. So yeah, fasting is a great way to kind of reset away from the system, and you do have to be gentle with yourself in approaching that, because it does bring up a lot, and it does like you said, Avalin, it's eating as a coping mechanism to sort of silence and numb out from our confrontation with our ego. And when we stop the eating process, then all of a sudden we've got all this time and clear space to have no one else, nothing to distract us other than like, holy shit, I've got to sit with myself, I've got to sit with my ego, and I really don't like what I'm seeing, I really don't like what I'm confronted with. And so that's what gets people to usually fall off. And so you kind of have to do a little bit of spiritual homework before you jump into fasting. I would advocate, like, you really need to be ready to sit with yourself. If you're not prepared to sit with yourself, then I wouldn't jump into fasting. But it does provide a really good method of just allowing the body to do exactly what it does, which is always healing. It's always healing itself. It's always in this regenerative state all the time. We just are constantly getting in the way of it. We're constantly putting things inside of ourselves that are just wearing it down. And the way to make sure the body thrives, and what the Mother Earth provides, is she provides everything that leads to alkalinity within the body. If we can ensure our body is in an alkaline state, it's going to run in its optimal form. But what organized society tells us is that we have to consume all these things like meat, dairy, eggs, coffee, and all these other sorts of things, which are very acidic. They do the opposite effect. And so it makes sense why they push all these things on us, because they don't want us getting into this natural state of healing.
The
Because then they can,
protein myth.
yeah, the protein myth. It's just a farce. Like, we don't need, like, look at an elephant. They're incredibly strong. What protein do you think they're eating? You know,
Gorillas, yeah.
yeah, gorillas, like, they have the same teeth as we do. They're frugivores. We're frugivores. And it, so just all these myths pushed about what health is, and it permeates into even the holistic health world as well. Like, they still believe the same farce, when in reality it's so simple. And kids know it too, you know, until they're programmed out of it. Kids always want fruit. They always want fruit. They love fruit, and they could eat fruit all day until they start getting a taste for junk food and other things. Otherwise, they would just eat fruit. I truly believe that if we got out of their way and let them lead us, they would show us exactly what we need to do all the time. Like, we need to be letting kids lead us all the time, really, and stop ruining them. You know, they turn into little shits only because society programs them, you know, like the school ruins them and TV ruins them, and the junk food that we eat, then they can turn into little tyrants. But before that, like, they're truly the leaders that we need to be focusing on, and letting them guide us into the ways. Um, where was I going with that? So yeah, so alkalinity, it's really as simple as, like, it's not necessarily the alkaline the state of the food that we're intaking. So you take lemon juice, for example, it's very acidic in nature. You know, you test it, it's very acidic, but it has a very alkalizing effect on our body, because alkalinity in the body is not about the state of the food that we're consuming, but it's about how easy it is for our body to break down. So fruit sugars, glucose is what our body wants. So fruit is the easiest form for our body to break down. It's the quickest way to get to that fuel source that it wants. Whereas meat, dairy, and other things, like, it doesn't really have that in it. We can't even process that food without the help of parasites. So when we consume those sorts of things, we're adding toil to our bodies. We're giving a lot of churn, and the more churn that we give inside of our bodies, the more acids we form. And the more acids we form, then the more acidic we become, and then we're put into a more diseased state. Um, so it's really just a choice between ease. Alkalinity is just ease. So just getting really simple and finding those things that are easiest for our body to do, and then detox happens naturally. It's just a natural system of our body flushing what doesn't serve us, and it does it really, really well. We just get in its way way too much.
It's crazy how intelligent our body is. Like, I
Just
think that
truly.
it's highly underestimated. And even the languaging, again, this is kind of going into victim consciousness, in terms of how we talk about our bodies and how, you know, we're reliant on these external systems. But, you know, again, with the kids, when I started learning about detoxification, we immediately started changing our language around when they would experience what most would say is a cold, or they'd have like running nose, or a fever or something like that. We changed our wording around that to detoxing. Your body is detoxing, and
Yeah.
we talked about that our bodies are doing exactly what it's designed to do, that it's moving out what it doesn't need. And because, you know, growing up, when I went right into victim, and I liked it
Hmm.
because I was coddled
Hmm.
in it. It was just like, oh, here, take this medicine and you won't feel anything.
Here's
Well,
a
I'm
Sprite or
I
something.
totally. And I fully, like, I used to get migraines and headaches like a lot when I was a teenager and growing up. And I very much so believe now, because whenever I experience any kind of migraine or headache now, I never take Tylenol or ibuprofen or anything. But I fully suspect that every time I experience it now, I'm feeling all the times that I suppressed it, because now there's not only was I suppressing the pain that was trying to be expressed, but all of the toxicity from taking the medication every
Mm,
time.
yeah.
So it's like we just compound it. And so then when we detox, it's like the layers start coming out, and emotions, or like, I don't know, like flashbacks from childhood of emotional states or wounding and stuff. It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
But yeah, just, you know, with the kids, it's so important. Like, even my daughter, you know, when she gets going on like the trampoline, or she starts sweating, she's like, oh, I'm detoxing, all like,
Nice.
it's pushing all
That's
my
awesome.
sweating, mommy. And I'm like, isn't that great? And so just like, it's a totally different experience than,
I
you
like
know,
that.
us growing up.
Yeah.
Growing up, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, truly. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Do you have any questions, Kyle? Like, do you have any
Well, no, it's
probing?
I want to stay on the body thing, but it's interesting when you guys are talking about that. It sounds, you know me, I very much align with the law of one principles in many ways. So I really look at, we have a mind, a body, and a spiritual energetic system. And you guys are talking about this body system right now, and it sounds so similar to the mind system when I'm teaching people to meditate. And the most common thing I hear from people is, oh yeah, I tried to meditate, or I can't meditate because my mind's too busy, or I find it amazing looking at the mind system, how people can't sit. The average person finds it difficult to sit in a place until they get a quiet mind, and then learn from themselves as they're sitting in that state of listening to what their mind is feeding them. And they find it so uncomfortable, they leave and they won't meditate because they're so uncomfortable with what their mind is offering them of what they need to work on. It's just so fascinating. And that's kind of what you're talking about with the body as well. Like, get rid of the shit you're putting in it, stop the background noise, let it reset somewhat, and then listen and learn from it. Very similar to the mind complex of learning meditation.
Exactly.
Right?
It's the exact same. And when we can get our bodies into a pure state where we have reduced the amount of information that we're putting into it, then we get really clear on like, oh, I just ate that and I have this reaction immediately. It's not like there's this obfuscation or this delay between when it's happening, or I'm not just piling on other sources of information. So I have no idea why I'm feeling this way. It's just, well, I don't know, like it just happens. And
I'm so glad you said that, because like tonight I had a conversation with Crystal because you guys got donuts, right?
We got these vegan donuts, but they're still loaded with sugar on the outside. And
I get in this situation where I'm like, how do I balance this with my kids? So I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And so I'm very aware that I choose what's in the house, but they're also powerful creators. So they're, I don't want to keep them in a bubble either. I want them to understand like what it feels like when they eat something that doesn't resonate. And I also understand that there's such high frequency beings that I'm pretty sure that their body would be able to assimilate whatever they needed to, no matter how shitty it was. And I think back, even from my own childhood, holy crap, did I eat like shit? Like as a kid, just like, oh my God. And even my youth, like growing up into my teenagehood, I was like a healthy one. It wasn't until I did a questionnaire for iridology that I realized I was actually not very healthy, not nearly as much as I did.
For what, sorry?
An iridology questionnaire.
Iridology? I don't know.
So reading your iris, you can actually see all your weakness in your iris.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So so the donuts. So I was saying to Crystal, I want to create a baseline for them so that at least they have that, so that when they do try on all of the things that is around us all the time, we go to birthday party or, we get like a lovely treat that's offered, that they'll have the experience where they consume it and then they can take note. They have enough awareness to like say, oh, I'm like, I have to hork up.
Did I lose you?
And my daughter is very sensitive to this. She's like hardcore vegan.
Is she ever?
My son is very impulsive, kind of like I tend to be, where he's just like, if there's meat and potatoes on the table, he will certainly reach for that first. And so I'm like, I try to balance, how do I support them in their sovereignty without controlling it so that they binge later. And so I just want to create awareness. So I was telling Crystal, like, they've watched, again, 5 and 8, all of the horrific like animal videos and like food processing videos, because I said, okay, fine, fair enough. I want you guys to have the choices. I went back and forth about this because like some of those videos are horrendous, or like the documentaries are horrendous. Like, if you're going to choose to put that in your body, you need to know where it comes from. If we're out and about and someone offers you something, if it's in the store, in the grocery store, you need to know where that comes from. And so at least they have the, the free will to make that decision without feeling resentful that mom picks everything that we eat, because it's such a delicate balance, because I don't want to create these, stigmas around food, especially. Like, it's one of our deepest wounds as humans, our relationship with food, and it carries so much weight.
Yeah, good on you for walking that tightrope. I mean, that's tough. That's really tough to do. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good approach to show them the full truth behind where this food comes from, and then let them choose. I mean, it's still though, like, it almost be like, well, if you want to eat that, you've got to go kill a pig or something, like no kid is ever gonna want to be like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go kill an animal. That doesn't happen. It's never happened. And so somewhere along the way, we just get tricked into this separation between the horror, what's happening, and when you really boil it down, like, and who's pushing the meat in the meat industry, not only is it bogging our bodies down, but it's a slippery slope into that way of being, that sort of satanic blood ritual that they all
Mm-hmm.
participate in, because they consume human flesh. And so it's just one step closer, and then you find out what they put in McDonald's meat and all that other kind of stuff, and
Yep.
it's like, exactly, that's what it is. They're trying to get us to be in that same sort of thinking. And so consuming animal flesh is just a step closer to that, and that's what they want. And so not only energetically does it align us with that sort of path, and we don't even realize it, but then physically we're actually doing it and participating in it too. It's crazy. But
Yeah, it becomes really normalized. And I don't even think, I'm not really sure. Like, I do believe that, adding to what you said, that we don't even really need sleep. And I fully believe that in the intelligence of our body, and the most efficient way for it to run is actually just as a breatharian.
yeah, for
Will
sure.
a great majority of the population experience that in this lifetime? I don't know. But the fact that I do believe and know that they have the intelligence to do that, is really fun and really exciting. Um, and so I don't think that it's necessarily like raw is law, or fruit only. Like, it is the way for ascension, and I see that as like the way. But I still don't have any like judgment or qualms around, especially when things like, if someone's like eating fish, or they're fishing and it's done sustainably, and they're honoring their food and being present and aware with their food. I don't see anything like in discord with that. I think it's still just like a process of ascension of like where we're going, but it's still much higher in integrity than
Mhm.
let's just kill all the fish. Like,
Right.
it's much more intentional. And
Yeah.
so it's not like this like absolute dogmatic approach, because we didn't all come for the same reason either. So
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you shouldn't ever compare yourself to others, because we're all in our own specific part in the journey that we need to be for our specific reasons and for our specific needs of learning. Um, I just see it as like there's yeah, it's a choice. It's a choice to um to sort of like go to either maintain, or we're often given that choice to maintain, to sort of stagnate, or to keep growing, or to move away. And yeah, I'm all in on going the full route. Like, I'm not saying I'm ever gonna get to breatharian, or, well, I won't say never, but it is a goal. Like, I would love to get to that point, to where just to experiment, just to see what it's like. Because I think having that having that knowledge that's the pinnacle, like, that's the goal, and that's sort of the aim of this game. Not judging anyone for wanting to stay and do it however, because we get that opportunity. We get to go around this wheel as many times as we want to, and experience in whatever way we want to, and whatever flavor we want to. And there's nothing wrong with that, because it's all for the creator to know thyself. So every experience is valid and necessary. um, but just for me personally, I like the upward moving route, and I don't want to keep going that way.
totally, yeah. Well, and the potential is the most exciting part. I think it's just this, this because we like to put things in boxes, and we like to be very control, like the understanding of like having control over certain things, of that it needs to look this way, and if it doesn't, then it must not be true. Just the cycle of like, I'll use this as an example. Like, it was only like a couple weeks ago, my son and I had fish, but I had to allow myself to have the fish, because it's actually part of the healing to come out of that
Oh
cycle.
yeah.
Because and so this is another thing that you might experience too. I really, really desired to eat fish for supper. And so then I was trying to discern, is this what my body's asking for, or is this like my parasites that are asking for this? So it's like this, okay, this deep discernment on like, who's speaking? Is it the worms or the body? And so half the time what I would do is I would allow myself to have it. And this is like earlier on, I haven't eaten like red meat in a very long time. but I actually would allow myself to purchase or acquire the red meat, for example. And then half the time I wouldn't even eat it, but I had to allow myself the freedom to do it, because otherwise it became too restrictive, and it was just like abstaining, but not from a place of empowerment. And so I think it's just this discernment of not judging what it looks like, because it's not clear cut, and it does unravel all of your shit,
Mm-hmm.
literally and figuratively. And so it's just, a good listening, a good discernment of really getting clear, of being able to hear your own inner guidance
Yeah.
as you go, because it's not like clear cut by any means.
No, definitely not. And that's an incredibly wise approach to take, because we shouldn't be beating ourselves up for having those kind of things, because every choice that we make is exactly the one that we needed to make in that moment in order to learn something from it.
Right.
And we
Yeah.
wouldn't have learned that specific thing from that choice if we hadn't actually gone through it. And so when we try and really get controlling of it and abstaining from it, from that sort of, it's almost ego trying to step in and control it in that sort of way, even though it's like kind of for the higher good, but it's ego stepping in and trying to like, so it gets tricky. But really just allowing and staying present and saying, okay, I'm going to make this choice, and I'm going to truly feel what it feels like. And if that is to experience pain because of the, the repercussions of the choices that I made, then so be it. And that's what I needed to experience in that moment. But yeah, just fully allowing that. And because we're here to just experience, we're not here to just jump to a destination. Like, we're here to go along the whole journey and see what it's like, and play with all the nuances, and see what happens, because it would be awfully boring if we were just already there, at the end.
Yet it's so surprising just how many people aren't seeking in those areas. I find it amazing how many people just aren't seeking inner growth, how many people aren't seeking to find the truth, how many people aren't seeking to understand their body better. It's amazing, and it shows just how deep the psychological programming goes, when a lot of people just don't even think that that's important. They don't think it's relevant. It's fascinating.
It's so funny because Crystal and I, again, I don't know, we must have talked about a lot of stuff tonight, but we were talking about this burn, this, this reaching for something more. And she asked me, she said, well, do you think you'll ever be settled? And I said, I used to
about me or to you?
To me, because I know you and I are both very similar
Yeah.
in this way. Where I said, my mom used to she would kind of fault me for it. She'd be like, you're just looking to distract yourself and fill like this void, and you can be happy in this moment. And I was like, that's a valid point. And so, I tried to just be accepting, and this should be sufficient, and I should be happier. And I went through this like really dark place of, what's wrong with me, and I should be happier. And it wasn't the fact that I wasn't happy. I think it's just the way that some people are wired to be on the seeking, that if we weren't wired that way, we wouldn't expand, we wouldn't lean in when it's uncomfortable. And so Crystal and I were talking about this of just, I said, it's not an unsettling, it's just this, this deep joy and knowing that there is always more, and enjoying that expansive feeling and that experience, that it will always have me reaching more, because that's when I was a kid, it was always capital letters, there's got to be something more. And but I would look around and everyone was seemingly so happy, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? Why is everyone really this happy? Am I just like really depressed? And like, what is wrong? Why isn't this sufficient? And it was like, because there's something more. And so it will never be, I shouldn't say never, maybe maybe in the enlightened state you're just like present, and I'm fully aware of that too, that's a practice, but it's just fun to expand all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can still be seeking and present. Finding presence within the seeking is like the goal. Because I think the seeking part is the flair that free will provides to always make this a never-ending experience. When there's never any boredom, there's never any limit, there's never any like end goal. It's just always like, oh well, I get to keep going. Like, I get to keep exploring. Like, I really like the Sanskrit terms satyagraha and ahimsa as two kind of like guiding mottos. Satyagraha meaning seeking truth, and ahimsa being causing no harm. And if you can just use those two principles as your I use those as my guiding motto, like causing no harm and seeking the truth, and just that's it. That's all I want to do. But yeah, it makes it that much more exciting because there's no stagnation within it. And honestly, like if we're looking at it from the infinite creator's perspective, like the ways to increase the number of experiences is going to be the better one, because the more that we can experience, the better that we're sort of adding to that collective experience and doing it in a better way. So I think we've kind of been programmed and wired to not have to push those feelings down and to not lean in and do those sorts of things. So those of us who are more inclined to that are the leaders in this sort of transition that we're going through. But I think that'll become a lot more normal and natural state of being for everyone, once we sort of break these shackles and break these bonds that we've been enclosed with for so long. But I think there's a beauty to having experienced this whole era of just pure enslavement to this degree, is that we get to experience that exaltation of breaking those bonds and breaking those chains and saying, hey, we did that. Like, holy shit, we did all of that and we came out on the other side. Like, there's no way that I could have experienced that depravity, that darkness, and then come all the way up around without actually going through it. We couldn't simulate that. So even that, and even having those within it, those souls who are inclined to not be seeking and just be okay, be complacent in that sort of slave mentality, to sort of provide the background, kind of like it had to be that way, because we wouldn't have had that. We wouldn't have been complacent if every single person was seeking to this degree, because we would have just called bullshit it from the very beginning. So we needed people who were a little bit more mellow and willing to play that part and play that role, so that we could have this grand performance that we're all a part of and we get to pass through and see from the other side. But it's
Plus,
so
it's like part of the burn of emerging from, even though like your surrounding, your environment is not. You have to go against it, and that requires so much courage and so much self-trust that couldn't be cultivated if it wasn't there, if we didn't have that counter pressure.
right. Yeah, it wouldn't be nearly as
The
fun of a
hero's
challenge.
journey for all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It truly is. That's the one story. That's the one story. That's why they can't tell any other story and have it really be successful in movies besides the one story, the hero's journey, because that's the only one that we really want to hear. Because that's the only one that we're trying to play a part in. That's what the Bible's written about, is the hero's journey. That's what Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, like all these are the hero's journey. Like, that's what we want to do deep down, like deep in our core level. If we really want to be the hero or the villain, and that's our choice. You can do that.
Yeah,
You can do that one too.
10% will go that way.
Yeah. I don't think it's that high. I don't think it's 10% of people, but maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's probably me thinking of the law of one stuff, where they talk about 10% of the universe is malevolent and 90% is benevolent, just to
Yeah.
have that polarity to create the
Yeah.
energy in the middle.
Yeah. That's wild that you say that. I didn't remember that split, but learning about the difference between the right and the left brain, where the left brain is all about like facts, figures, and logic, and that's where the ego resides. It's only about 10% of our brain, and that's the sort of dying electrical brain, whereas the 90% right brain is all about magic, legend, and lore, and it's where like our connection with God comes from. And it's interesting that same sort of split is there as well. And that's what is said in the Bible about paying your tithing, your 10% tithing. It's not to a church. It's not to pay a church any sort of money. It's to let go of that 10% dying brain, so that we can fully step into our right brain and connect with God fully, and say, ego,
Oh, I love that. That's
you've got
awesome.
no power here. Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, it's just cool that it's that same, because the law of one is that telling that same story just in a more Q&A kind of format. But
Yeah.
it's just breaking it down in a different sort of way of like, what are we here to do? We're here to ascend, and we've got some challenges along the way that are trying to get in the way and keep us from doing it. And here's how you do it.
Yeah, what a ride it is.
Yeah.
Can you think of like a more terrifying question than who are you? And further that, witnessing someone say, I know who I am, especially if you're not someone who knows who you are. Like,
Yeah.
and bearing witness, someone say, I know who I am. Like that's, you're just like, holy shit.
Okay, I'll throw something else to you. So I took Hope, our little girl, to daycare, I don't know, a month ago or something. And I've got a Law of One bumper sticker on. I think it's actually bring forth, or bringtheforth.org, I think it was, but it's Law of One. And as I actually parked, and then saw another guy parking, taking out his child before me. And even though I parked closer, I wanted to wait to let him go through to be nice, because he parked first. And 8 o'clock in the morning, everyone's rushing in to drop the kids off. And so he went first, and then we did the kid thing, came walking out, and he goes, hey, I saw that bumper sticker, and I've only got one bumper sticker on there. And I go, oh yeah? And he goes, have you read the Law of One? I go, yeah, you can say that. And he goes, so you're familiar with it? I said, yeah, quite a bit. I said, I'd like to think I'm a bit of a scholar of it. I read it a lot.
Yeah, I've got
And
a
he's like,
fucking
really?
bumper sticker.
What's that?
You've got a fucking
Yeah.
bumper sticker, of course you know the Law of One.
And so he's like, oh, okay. And I don't even, we were in a bit of a rush, and I wasn't even thinking. It was just coming through me. And somehow, and I'm not usually this bold with it, somehow I basically, in a couple minutes, said, I'm a wanderer. I've come here. Part of my role is to assist people learning the Law of One a bit, and yada, yada, yada. And I threw out a couple things. And as I finished saying it, I didn't even know I was saying it. And his face was just looking at me. And I said, too much? Like too soon? And he goes, no, but that's a lot. I need some time to process this. And and he already asked for my number or something, so I already gave him my number, and so he just walked away. And I thought, well, we'll see how that one goes. And he emailed me about a week later and just went, hey, can we meet? You know, it's soaked in a bit, but I thought it was so funny how I don't even know what made me think of that. I don't know what you guys were just talking about, but there was that sense, why are you here? Who are you? And so it was that kind of claircognizance that just came through in that moment. And I wasn't even thinking, it just came through, but it was exactly what he needed to hear. Exactly what I needed to say in that moment, where I'm not worried about being judged or whatever else. I walked away thinking, I'm surprised I was so forward with how I said that. And
I was so refreshed that you were. It was
I
awesome.
don't usually say I'm a wanderer. I'll say I resonate with being a wanderer, but it was just so crystal clear right there. And so anyways, we're meeting next week for a coffee, and
Nice.
super excited.
Yeah,
But,
I mean that is a prime example of paying that 10% tithing, because you had no ego. You had nothing to step in between you and that divine flow, the thing that was coming to you to say.
yeah.
And the more that we can step into this sort of just like activated moment to where we're allowing the infinite consciousness that we're all connected to flow through us at all times, to where we're not really even taking thought. Like we can observe things, we can be the observer, we are the observer, but not from a controlling perspective. And it's always going to lead us exactly where we need to go, because we're connected to God, who only wants us to grow in the best place, in the best way that we can possibly be. So it's only going to lead us to the most perfect ways, and have us say the most perfect things. And so yeah, that's really what Jesus taught, and that's really what was said within those words, was like, how do we, I mean, Jesus was all about just meditation and paying this tithing, like letting go of those thoughts, take no thought for your life, and letting go of that desire to control, to where God can truly move through us, and we can just be that representation of it. And yeah, so that's really cool that you did that.
Well, that's why I'm such a big advocate for meditation, because I try and, when I'm not going to profess to be the best meditation teacher out there, but I can hold my own in some capacity. And one thing I try and teach people is to be that observer, to try and stand on that bridge, looking down at whatever waters are below you, and and either picture your feet or picture your hands, that one hand is in the physical, in the matrix, and one hand is in the metaphysical, in the universe, and you're in the middle of that. You're the bridge between the two. And the more that you can practice being in that state, and not everyone needs to do it through dedicated meditation and sitting formally. There's so many different ways to do it: prayer, contemplation, meditation. But using meditation as an example, is you're training yourself to sit or stand on that bridge and be able to be the middle point, to be the observer of both to some degree, but just learn to be in that state. And so when I look at that moment that happened to me the other week, there was nothing cognitive coming through me. There was nothing premeditated. I was all of a sudden standing on that bridge, and in such a place of, okay, here I am, here's the matrix. I'm talking with someone in the matrix that is seeking something that I have some wisdom about, and my other arm is in the metaphysical, and next thing I know, it's just coming through me. And I think that's such a cool thing for someone to kind of visualize, that when you can be that observer and learn to stand on that bridge, then you are just a channel. And we're all channels, right?
At all times.
It's interesting
yeah.
how channeling has gotten this bad rap. That's all we are channels.
Yeah.
You can learn to be that clear, open channel.
Yeah, and adopting that meditative state throughout everything that we do. It's not a, like, yes, being still and silent is a great way to practice and to get within that, but the goal is to really transition that way of being into everything that I do, so that wherever I'm walking, whoever I'm speaking to is just in that same sort of flow. And I'm not trying to control it whatsoever. It's difficult. It's very difficult, but it is a worthy goal to aim for, because again, it always just leads us exactly where we need to go, and always towards abundance, always towards just like beautiful gifts and rewards. And that's what's so amazing about it, is this whole system is not, there's no external guide that's like going to judge us for what we do or whatever after the fact. Like it's built into the system, the rewards and the repercussions. Like, you want to eat that donut? Well, you're going to feel like shit. Like, there's repercussion. If you let that divine flow happen, you're going to have this beautiful conversation where who knows where it's going to lead. Like, I don't know what this relationship's going to look like, but it could be a stepping stone into something. Maybe not. Maybe it's just an activation for him. But either way, you're of service to the collective, and you're helping facilitate this transition and helping, just making it happen. So yeah, it's really cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you ever used Monetic circles as a meditation tool?
No,
It's just like a circle with a dot in the middle.
no.
I would highly recommend it. I just started using them, and it's like it's such an easy tool, and it's so effective. Like, it's so incredibly effective to just drop into that. You just softly gaze at the center of that circle, that point within the circle within. And it's interesting because it's a Masonic symbol. I think they use it in their higher levels to sort of teach meditation and how to draw on that power. But it's a very effective way of just really letting go of that state. So you're not closing your eyes, but you're just, and eventually the outer circle fades away, and then eventually the dot fades away too, and then you're lost. You're gone in that state. It's really, really neat.
Do you set an intention before, or any sort of mantra or anything, or you're just
I haven't. No, I'm just going for the complete stillness, like just letting it flow, like wherever it comes from.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think if I use it or incorporate it, I love setting intentions first. I just feel like it's sure the key to open the door to the deeper mind is silence. But I also believe that anchoring an intention can allow someone to break through some of the conditioning and some of those subconscious programs in the monkey mind that kicks in. And for someone that already has some skills, you could say, for quieting their mind, that could be a home run exercise. But I find a lot of people, the monkey mind is just so powerful. The busy mind is so powerful that sometimes you just got to give something for that monkey to hold on to.
Yeah.
They can play with this mantra, it can play with this intention, and then you can do what work you want to do.
Yeah, I
But I
think
like
they're
that.
yeah, I think they're effective sort of training to get to that point. But yeah, I just was curious if you tried that because I found them pretty effective.
No, but I'll look it up and incorporate it. If you got anything, send it off to me. But it sounds
Yeah,
pretty
I
straightforward.
I just have an image I can send you. I don't really have
Sure.
anything else other than just my personal experience. It
It
works.
sounds
It's
kind of
cool.
similar to meditating, looking at a candle,
Yeah,
which you look at that one of the four elements. It's pretty powerful just to sit and
right. Yeah,
candle as well.
fire in general is just it's so we have such a connection to it. It's very cleansing. Like you've got the baptism of water and then the baptism of fire. And like both of them are very essential. Baptism of water is all about the body, and that's that detox. That's that physical detox. But the baptism of fire is that mental detox. It's really purging all of those other things that are holding us back. So they're both very essential
Hmm.
to let go of those. Go in that full detox, head to toe.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you follow Dr. Morse, or like what was your entry point into detox?
I have only seen a few things with Dr. Morse. My entry point with detox was following Charlie Freak and his
Oh yeah.
work, and then I got onto Josh X, who kind of expanded a little bit further, and then it's really just been experimenting on my own. Yeah, I love a few of the things that Dr. Morse has put out there. Charlie Freak's just nice because he ties it all in holistically. He's like, this is the first step, but it's to get to this point, and it's all about raising the chrism oil and truly entering into that regenerative state. Activating our full chakra system, leaving from the five physical and crossing the throat into the third eye, which connects to the seventh above. And so I like that. I like the incorporating the full spectrum, like the spiritual implications of it as well. But I really like Dr. Morse's work. He's a little bit more granular, is a little more detailed as far as like what to do and what to avoid, and how I was so disappointed at the avocado thing. Like the avocados are slowing down of detox because I love those so much, and salt
Pillars.
too. Salt too
Oh,
was really
salt. Oh man.
is a hard one.
Get
But
it.
I'm kicking it. That's what this juice feast is about, is to kick the salt. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try it. I've got some celery that I'm gonna look for ways to kind of like wean off of it, but really trying to
Yeah,
kick
and
it.
it's interesting because our palate changes so radically when we fast that everything tastes different.
Hmm.
And I don't think that until we remove something and then reincorporate it, that we even really understand our experience to it.
Hmm.
Krista was talking about that tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that when I did a juice feast in December, obviously I didn't have any salt during that. And I did get back onto the salt pretty quickly right after that. And I noticed my lips just dried out really, really intensely. And I know I have some mucus buildup because my ears feel like I'm underwater at times. So I know I've still got some residual in there that I've got to work out. And I think it's got to be the salt and the avocados because that was just my thing. I just love a salty avocado. Like it's so good. Um, but that was a sad day to realize that's probably what's holding me back from getting that full detox experiment. And then yeah, trying to figure out um how to get my kidneys to flush a little bit better as well. Like I don't know if you ever check your urine to see like the lymph. um do you have any tips on ways to accelerate that process? I know dry fasting is good. I've heard grape juice is good.
Yeah. The dry fasting and the grape juice fast, and then watermelon fasting is also really good for cracking your kidneys open.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know that for some people, it can take a while. They
Yeah.
can be pretty credit up. And
Yeah.
it's shocking. Like I think I don't know, we need so much more education. Like even just looking at your pee, right? Like we're like, oh great, it's clear. No, it's actually not supposed to be clear. It's supposed to be cloudy. Just looking at that small piece of information, but and understanding kidney filtration as well, or people just getting into detoxification and not having that understanding, and then you flood your body with the toxins, but it has nowhere to go,
Hmm.
and you feel like shit. because then you create a healing crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, you need to have the support to be able to get you through that. Otherwise, that's why people quit so easily too.
Yeah,
And
there's just
that's like when people like use detoxification or they say they're doing a cleanse just to drop weight. I'm like, that's not going to bode well.
no. I mean
I mean, it's
that
part of your journey and you do that, that's fine, but
yeah,
it's actually just creating more detriment. But that's okay.
right. Yeah, I mean that's a byproduct if you're going to be doing what you need to detox, like that'll happen as it should, but it shouldn't be the goal. Yeah, it is so wild. There's so much to learn. There's so much to learn. And it's not like we have to we won't really have to keep all this information, because once we get past the societal programming and the sort of just garbage that we eat all the time, and we get back to a more holistic diet, we won't have to focus as much on the details on how to detox.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
transitioning to it, we really do have to get serious about this is how you do it, and this is the best ways to go about it. So yeah, I'm
Do you
working
ever
on
do things like dry brushing and then like hot showers, and then do you ever
hot
get
and cold,
into I'm having a brain fart.
lymphatic massages, those kind of things.
No, who's the ice bath guy?
Oh,
Mm.
uh,
I'm talking about.
I feel,
Dang it.
I can't remember. I feel like I've
But
heard,
anyway,
but yeah,
like
Hof?
hot.
the
Yeah,
hot
Wim Hof.
cold.
That's right.
Yeah,
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 hot, cold, and then yeah, the dry brushing is really good, and then like rebounding is really good because you're getting your lymph moving. So if you did any or all of those things on top of either fasting or one of those fasts with either grapes or watermelon, that would probably be really helpful.
What do you mean by rebounding? What is that?
So rebounding is just like essentially jumping on a trampoline, but it doesn't
Oh,
have to be like big jumping.
yeah,
Usually people get those small like exercise ones, but it doesn't
yeah,
have to be these big movements. It's just
hmm,
to agitate everything.
hmm.
Or enemas. I don't know if you've gotten
Yeah,
into those.
I ordered a bag. I'm gonna try doing that.
Those are game changing, I gotta say.
Yeah, yeah,
It is disturbing. Like you do a fast, you do like a liquid fast, and especially if you did your 20-day one, and like solids are still coming out.
right.
At, like
It's so crazy.
it's insane.
Wild.
You're just and that alone, I was like, okay, there's something to this. That's like, obviously the way you feel, but like solids coming out like weeks later.
Yeah.
But it's said that there's something like an average of 10 to 13 like parts of meals in our guts at any given time.
Probably why you've lost so much weight.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of it, is just all of that weight, yeah, coming out. But yeah, I do want to do enemas this time around. I should get here next week, and so I'll be experimenting with that, just to see what happens and see how I feel. Because like literally everyone who does them regularly is like, yeah, they're the best things ever. Like,
I know you wouldn't think
Yeah.
so. You really wouldn't, but
Yeah.
it's just it really is game changing.
You guys are motivating me because looking at the average person, how they eat, I eat quite well. But learning so much more and then hearing what you guys are doing and what you've done and what you're doing, I'm always up for a challenge. And yeah, I think I'd love to get something, help me out and design something for me. And
Really cool.
I'd love to just work on that body complex and see what I can do with some fasting. I think,
yeah, I mean the easiest type of fasting to jump into is intermittent fasting. So just really, really cut your meal time down to like 6 to 8 hours in a day. That's something.
yeah, and I've done fasting like that. That's not foreign to me. But I think to go a step further and do like juicing or something to really clean out some of those spots. And it's not like that I'm feeling anything needs to be taken care of, but it's more I'd like to potentiate myself further,
Yeah.
be able to open this channel as much as I can. And I think that's an area that I've been seeking for a while, but haven't really found the right resources to do it. So
Yeah,
think
well, even I know you mentioned like your shoulders pain you sometimes, or you said you've got some residual pain, right?
well, I've got back injuries and stuff from just sports and the fire department, but I mean, I've definitely got some aches and pains and surgeries I've had.
Yeah, like
One thing is the headaches. I have this hyperacusis from all of my concussions, and so sharp sounds. Like I've got how old is Hope? 14 months now. Oh, like some of
when she
the
screams.
shrieks that come out of babies, and
Well, then our kids.
we've got ones, and your kids, and we've got a small dog. Kona, our golden retriever, never barks, but we've got a smaller dog, and those sounds, I can tolerate it for a bit, and then basically I get a threshold in my ears, and that's it. Now it's this headache and ringing and pressure. It's almost like when it gets so elevated, and it happens at least a couple times a day, it feels like my brain is being electrocuted. That's the best way I can explain it. It's like there's times where I'm holding Hope and she turns and a scream will come out, and hopefully Crystal's around, and I'm just like this. I'll actually hold her like this, and then so it's not directed at my ears. I'm turning the microphone away from me.
Yeah.
So who knows? I mean, maybe some of that stuff can be worked on. I don't know, but
Absolutely.
I think it just would be
all of
good
it
to
can.
test the body and see, put it into that state of health and regeneration and repair, and let it do its thing.
Yeah,
Get out of the way.
I'm a firm believer that there's nothing that we cannot cure. Like there's absolutely nothing that we're stuck with. There's no such thing as genetic diseases. That's a myth. There's no such thing as injuries that we have to just stick with our whole lives. We have complete, I mean, yes, people can get to an age and a level of toxicity that is really, really difficult to turn around, and you might not be able to, like after a certain point. But I truly believe that getting on that train, like just about everything can be turned around. And Avalin, have you ever seen John Rose's presentation? Do you like him at all, Dr.
I
Rose?
haven't seen his presentation, no.
Okay, I can send it to Kyle, and you can pass it along. But he does a great presentation on juice feasting, and just kind of gives the introduction on how to do it, how to prepare yourself for it, and what to expect, and what kind of things you can heal from it. But he's got a lot of experience on just healing people, and he was like, I figured this out, and it works really well. And so this is my thing. Like this is what I'm supposed to do here, is I'm supposed to just heal people through this information. And so but I'll send it over to you. It's a 2-hour presentation, but it's pretty thorough, and it does a good job breaking everything down.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, Dr. Morse, like listening to him talk about, especially some of the more common injuries or diseases or ailments that people basically accept as degenerative or untreatable, like spinal cord injuries and stuff like that. And having his clients reverse those and heal them. I think that's brilliant. Of course, but of course,
yeah,
of course, our bodies are that smart.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Well, it'd be interesting too to see, because I was diagnosed with MS a number of years ago, and so it'd be interesting to see any changes on an MRI for myelin regrowth. With
totally possible.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Like he's had all kinds of people with like tumors and cancers and scoliosis and rashes, like diabetes, like all of it. Like there's nothing that the body can't heal. I think it's brilliant.
We just have to get out of the way, and that's why fasting is so great, because when we give our body more energy to devote to healing itself instead of digesting things. And that's why a lot of people think that juice fasting is the best, because you're not straining, unless like Avalin said, you're at a higher form of detoxification where you can do the water fasting. You're not putting that added stress on your kidneys, because you're still maintaining those nutrients from the juice, but you're giving your full lower digestive system a complete rest, so your body has to do absolutely nothing in that area, so it can devote full energy, maximum throttle to just healing things. So I've heard people have moles fall off their skin, because their body is just like, okay, this is useless, let's go ahead and get rid of it.
Moles are fungus.
It's wild. And just things just happen. And it's crazy. Like I don't even have to, I don't shower very often anymore, because I never smell bad. I never smell bad anymore. I just don't. And I don't have to, I brush my teeth at night just because I like the feeling of it, but my mouth never tastes bad anymore.
I was talking to a friend about this today, because I'm so fascinated by our teeth, because the dentistry industry, or the dental industry, is something that is so overlooked. It's like even worse than the medical industry, because You
It's
ask
horrible.
like 98% of people, what happens if you have a toothache? We go to the dentist. There's just like no batting an eyelash or anything. That's just what it is. You just go to the dentist. Meanwhile, looking at how our bodies can heal itself, like lymphatic fluid goes through like into our teeth. And so I actually am a huge believer that we don't even need to brush our teeth. If our body is in the right balance and
For alkaline,
we're
yeah.
eating the appropriate food, which would be ideally fruit, there wouldn't be a need to do that. And you can heal cavities and like all of it.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting to me. But it does get messy before, like often, because you're bringing up all of the toxicity and all of the weakness.
Yes.
So even like a devotion to this kind of detoxification can be quite a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Like when I went deep, like the last time that I went deep, I wasn't working and I still had Witten and Indy, but like I would spend a good 2.5 hours per day just doing hot and cold showers, preparing juices, dry brushing, like, and then resting, and then going for a walk and sweating, like trying to do all of these things. It was really intensive. And not feeling great in between some days because of what was surfacing. Some stuff does come up and you're like, oh my God, I can't go out.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of stuff we get. It's just so compacted down in there that it
But
takes
then
a
you
lot.
feel so great after, and then you're like, holy God, because we don't even realize how good we can feel. Like we have no idea because we were born with weakness and toxicity.
Yeah, and just going back to teeth, like I truly believe that this body is meant to live 1,000 years, if not more. Like our teeth are meant to last that amount of time, and we just have gotten in the way. We've gotten into this belief that we should die, a young age before we're 100 years old, and so we just adopt that and we eat the shit, and it just happens that way. But we don't have to. We don't have to. We can step into it fully, and yeah, it's wild. It's wild. It truly is wild.
I love talking about this kind of thing.
Me too. Yeah, me
I
too.
remember in the Raw Contact, they were talking about how long people used to live for. And yeah, I remember them talking about 900 to 1,000 years was kind of an optimal lifespan, something along those lines anyways. Which then again, you can look at it as, it makes a lot of sense why we're so immature by the time we die. Because
Yeah,
we're just starting to learn how to be. We're just waking up spiritually.
Yeah.
And then the incarnation's done and we start again.
When you finally have like these little old grandmas who don't give a shit what anyone says and they're finally living their life.
Yeah. Their magical personalities finally coming out. And then
yeah, it's wild. I mean, we're so dumbed down. We're so just it's brilliant. Like just going back to that, the system is brilliant to keep us away from discovering ourselves. But that's the challenge, and that's what we agreed to have.
Yeah.
We wanted that challenge. We wanted these people to take that role and say, get in our way as much as possible, and they really have done a good job. So
we came here for the challenge. We came here for it. We knew what we were getting into. Just forget. It's a thick veil.
That's the hardest part of the challenge, is the forgetting. Yeah, if we remembered, we'd get there a lot faster. But I'm sure we had many incarnations where we didn't have the forgetting, and it was a lot easier. And then we did it a lot, and it was like, okay, now that's boring. I beat that game. Let's kick up the difficulty a little bit. Let's make it a little harder. Let's just forget everything. All right, here we go.
Well, bro, just looking at the time here.
Yeah.
Might wrap things up.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. It's about
awesome.
It's about 2 hours.
Awesome connecting with you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was great chatting with you, Avalin. Good meeting you, and always a good time talking to you, Kyle.
Yeah, it was lovely to meet you. I've heard a lot about you, so it was nice to actually finally connect with you. So that's great. I was really honored to be part of this conversation.
Yeah, it was a beautiful one. And yeah, and I guess y'all are still playing around with the idea of moving to Costa Rica.
It's in the forefront. There, just in the amount of synchronicities popping up for us right now, pointing us in that direction. I've never seen so many synchronicities. I've never seen especially so many synchronicities between two families. Like your family is getting all of these synchronicities. Like daily, we're getting things popping up, and not little things, like big synchronicities. I'm getting them. Crystal's getting them. It's it's fascinating.
Yeah, I actually just met a couple who are in Costa Rica, and they have to fly to Mexico for a minute, but then she said that ideally they want to get back to Costa Rica. So I can link y'all up if you want to chat with someone else who's lived there.
We would love any resources, because the plan right now, if everything continues with the momentum behind it right now, is end of June after Crystal's done work. She's a teacher, but there's that concern around how are things going to change, how are flights going to change, PCR tests, these sorts of things. So we've got some research to do, because I'm not letting anyone stick anything up my nose unless I made it myself.
Or your ass, the anal swabs.
Unless it's this going up my nose. I know where this has been most of the time. So, we've got some research to do in that capacity, because we're hearing different horror stories. I have a feeling it's all going to work out. And if it doesn't, then we're being directed somewhere else for some other reason, right? Everything happens for a reason. But we're hopeful.
Yeah, I don't think you have anything to worry about in that front, but I do fully support the idea of moving to Costa Rica, because that sounds incredible.
Well, and talk about eating fruit all the time. We want to get a homestead going. We want to live off the land, and maybe make a detox retreat center for people to come visit.
Yeah.
Like, it could be some really exciting stuff in the works. So it is some really exciting stuff no matter where we go.
Yeah.
But Costa Rica, I love it there. It's magical.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I love you both, and I really love this conversation. I think it was magical.
Hey, love you too, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's stay in touch. We'll do this again.
Definitely.
Okay, Justin.
Have a good night.
Y'all have a good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.